Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to Wisdom and Wealth Pathways to a Life of Significance for You and Your Family. I am your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff. It's great to be with you all today. And as always, I'll be joined by the star of our show, and that's Mr. Frank Astorino of the Astorino Financial Group. And Frank and I are going to be unpacking another wealth management related discussion today. And to start off today's discussion, I have a question for you, our audience, and that is, how well do you and your spouse or your partner work together when figuring out issues around saving, spending, and investing as a whole, right? Everybody out there is going to have different answers to this question, but those answers could have a big impact on your future as individuals and, of course, as a couple. So, Frank and I today are going to be discussing really making wealth management decisions as a couple today and look closer at how you can build a better financial partnership to go along with your marital one or just your relationship as a whole. So before we dive into the nitty-gritty of it, let's go ahead and say hi to Frank. Frank, it's good to see you this morning. How you doing, sir?
Ryan, great to see you again, and love the topics you're picking for us. And this is a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good one, Frank. Let's start kind of high level as we typically do, and assess kind of the current landscape. Do you see most couples these days making financial decisions together, or does one person more predominantly take the reins in this realm of decision making?
I don't have exact statistics, but I would say the majority, I'd say it's about 25, 75. 75% have usually one dominant person who's either the breadwinner or the more financially astute, and they take charge and control. And I'd say about 25%, work together, and that's the optimal.
Of course, and let's get into some of those benefits, though. That's ultimately why we're here. What would you say are some of the benefits then of couples that do work through these financial challenges or even just discussions together and really work as a team?
Well, top of mind would be less conflict. Marriage is difficult to start. I think most people find that, but it also could be the most rewarding partnership that you could have in your investment in life. So I think that it does lead to a stronger commitment of your goals, especially if you're aligned with your goals. Second, I think it definitely could increase your bottom line in terms of your outcome of discussing major wealth decisions. Working together can also serve as a reality check during stressful times. It's not uncommon that people react more sensitively to market volatility. And as we say, well, as we educate people that volatility doesn't mean losing money, but if one person emotionally anchors, a historical past or fear, that may lead to an inappropriate decision, an expedient decision that could have been avoided if you had two minds working together rather than one. Um, we found that also that in many occasions, female investors tend to outperform their male counterparts because they're less motivated to um, make those quick decisions on buying or selling. They're more patient and emotionally calming, and hence why I like to have both in the meetings that we have for reviews.
No, I like this a lot, Frank, and I like how you mentioned, how they can kind of keep each other in check during those stressful times. And I want to double click on that just a touch, further. Would you say then that some of these benefits of working together might even also have the ripple effect, if you will, of building a stronger marriage or partnership along the way?
For sure, I can answer that on a couple levels. First of all, money issues are the leading drivers of divorce, and divorce is a pretty high statistic, and it's also the number one detriment of wealth. So if people are looking for financial security or expansion of wealth, divorce definitely doesn't help that. So it does pay to have a partner that you can communicate, and communicate is the key. I've shared the story that my wife and I, after many years of marriage, it's at least 36 years, we found that we have a nice place that we go to have the heavy lifting decisions. And there are decisions that you can request of the other. There are those that you could require because you have a pretty strong um, motivation behind your decision, and the others can be negotiated. But you need a platform to be able to communicate and get things out on the table, and even having someone help you reframe what the issues are.
Now, Frank, I love this so far. Frank, we talked about how, yes, it could help kind of promote a stronger relationship or a stronger marriage as a whole when you move through some of these difficult financial discussions together. But are there any other important advantages that you see occurring among couples that are working together to solve these financial challenges, or even just have the discussions together?
Absolutely. When we do retirement planning at all ages, it's a number one discussion topic of what's my number? How do I get there? And what people need to be reminded of, it's a fact that women generally have longer life expectancies than men. So if the female in the partnership tends to take a back seat and doesn't stay involved, and it leaves the door open to surprise and failed expectations or desperation when they lose their partner, and they may be single for a long time after losing someone. So making important financial decisions together, whether it be retirement, paying down debt, children's education, all these things cause emotional triggers. I'm doing a lot of counseling with younger people today, and I've come kind of 360. My desire grow in business and in saving was to save as much pre-tax money as I could. So when you have young couples today trying to save to buy a house or start a family, yes, academically it might make sense to have both max out their pension and matching, but maybe paying down debt or saving for that first home might be a compromise where one spouse does the retirement plan at the max and the other one uses their income to put a savings together for buying that first house. So there's a lot of ways of getting compromises, and not everybody is going to come in with the same history. So you have to kind of unpack, what's going to be the driver to do what's best for both.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I mean, hey, our past is what defines us, and sure, your past experiences are going to influence your future decision making. So I like how you can kind of complement each other and work for a strategy that works for the both of you. Frank, for those people out there though that may already be working together with their, significant other, their wife or husband, or uh, but maybe they want to get better at that process and be more effective in their conversations and achieve more desired outcomes. Any advice to those folks?
Sure, I'm a perpetual learner, so I think it's when you see what's out there for industry experts, it's humbling because you need to know that you're not going to know everything. And you need to have confidence that there's no dumb question or nothing that's not relevant when it comes to your own money or your own health for that matter. And stress around money affects health. So we try to give people tools that give them a better framework to make decisions. And there's so many mediums to do that. We invest a lot for our clients in a website that's interactive. It has calculator, it has podcasts, and so forth. But there's also literature that if you're dealing with someone who's got experience and expertise in financial planning and retirement and things of that nature, they can help you choose the right medium and the right source of reading to get your up to speed with asking better questions when you come in for a meeting, so that you're not sitting there and having someone talk through you. It's really important that you're part of the conversation and part of the input, and have that silent confidence that you know enough to expand your ability to have a more fruitful wealth management program.
Sure, sure. Expanding that financial intelligence certainly a big part of it because yeah, having the confidence to go in and be a real part of those conversations is only going to allow you to see more success towards those goals of yours in the future. Frank, this is all really good stuff. I want to circle back now to a word you mentioned earlier and get a little deeper into it, and that's compromises. Every relationship involves making compromises, whether it is around financial matters or, frankly, anything that goes on in our lives. Any advice for couples on making these compromises specifically when it's related to financial matters?
Yeah, I want to combine. I'll circle back to the last question, and then I'll tie it in with this one. I like when people make their own lists, whether it's a tolerance blast of things that are bothering them, or it's goals looking into the future, top 10 bucket list of what they want to do, and have them both separate them, have individual lists, and then see where they meet and can overlap and where they rank them. Um, and I think that's a start. Now, as far as the compromises, um, it all starts with an appreciation for the other person. And I find that in some relationships, one wants to control more than the other or has an assertion for control. And you might want to ask, what's that all about? Or why do you feel the need to have that control? And sometimes in a discovery meeting, you'll find out how each grew up with issues around money or what um, the life was like around money issues and how it was communicated. And it kind of transcends from generation to generation. But when one dominates and controls the decision making, it could harbor resentment and lead to some unfavorable outcomes in the future. So my suggestion is that they find a way to welcome the spouse's opinion without being judgmental. We call this our no judgment zone. When you come to talk to a neutral advisor, there is no judgment. And it's a matter of getting what are the issues, because we have toolboxes and we have experience and appreciation that the human mind and being is sometimes complex, and you might need a sounding board to unravel some of those issues that you might not be able to do on your own because they're unconscious.
No, it makes all the sense in the world. And so, Frank, I want to move through that and ask another kind of, key question, because we've talked about it on prior episodes in different ways, shapes, and forms, and that is we all have different wealth personalities, right? We look at wealth differently, we treat our wealth differently, and that can play an interesting variable in this conversation when you're navigating wealth challenges and discussions with your significant other. So, what do you have to say on this front when, let's say, a husband and wife might have differing wealth personalities and those fundamental views about money are a little different? Any suggestions or ideas on how to navigate that landscape?
For sure. I think that sometimes people generalize about expectation and they may not know what's really underneath the decision. And especially when it comes to respective tolerance for risk. We have different measures. Some of them are academic, some of them are experiential, but we can kind of help people hone in on what their risk budget is. And it's sometimes often uh, amusing that someone could come out as a 95 out of 100 on their portfolio, but when you uncover what their real feelings are, they're a 25, which basically means they have a much lower risk tolerance than their portfolio. And that starts a conversation about what could go wrong with this scenario and how can this impact all those big decisions that you're trying to make together. And that helps you determine how much equity you have in a portfolio versus fixed income and bonds. Um, so I think that some of the things that we do to differentiate risk is to see how much is for preserving the risk. We ask the question, what would life be like if you had half of what you have and half of the income, and what would you not want to give up? And then also we talk about in the discovery period, what price is it to have that, and what value is it to have peace of mind? Are you willing to adjust your expectations so that one is not going to be like risking the whole nest egg when you have some very specific goals that are very important to your values that you've shared in the beginning. So that's where you go back to that communication.
Frank, as we're bringing our conversation to a head here today, you had mentioned earlier just that you're having these types of conversations with clients of yours, kind of being that facilitator, if you will, of some of these questions and conversations in the financial process. So in these situations, do you kind of see yourself as that, intermediator between, a husband and wife, between a couple, and working with them, to address these kinds of questions, to put a plan forth? Do you see yourself in that role, and what is it like being in that chair?
I do very much, and I tell couples that managing money is like marriage; it's a partnership. And in order for there to be parity in the partnership, both need to attend the board meetings. And it's good to identify your requirements for a trusted professional. The professional can come unbiased and unemotional, but the two criteria there is you have to intrinsically trust that individual, and you also need to know and have demonstration of their competence and their skill level. So, in short, attending meetings together, especially the critical ones, identify a professional that you're comfortable with, and look at money matters as a partnership, not you stay in your lane and I'll stay in my lane and we'll meet for dinner. It's really a group effort.
I love that. Well, Frank, for anybody out there in our audience that's hearing this conversation today, it's resonating with them, and let's say they're recognizing, boy, maybe I could use some help from that intermediator, somebody that can work through these kind of tougher challenges with me and my significant other, so that we can have confidence and that peace of mind you mentioned earlier in a plan moving forward. And they might need some help on that. Well, Frank, how could somebody best get in touch with you and your team to just open up that dialogue and just start that conversation?
It's a great question. We've just completed revamping our website to start, and that's a good non-threatening way for you to see what our process is, to see how to get in touch with us, AstorinoFinancialGroup.com. And I would start there. It's full of information. It's full of contact information. And then I would take advantage of a no obligation initial meeting to see if there's a fit. And if we go from there, we go to what's called a stress test or a discovery meeting. And there's plenty of opportunity for you to know whether it's the right, relationship or not. And we make it user friendly, so there's no pressure. But I would start at the website, and then if you're interested, you follow up with a no obligation meeting.
All right, perfect. Well, Frank, look, I know you're a busy guy. You've got clients to serve, so we'll let you get back to doing that. But I appreciate you carving some time out of your day to jump on and dive into this, unique set of conversations that a couple, engages with each other. I love your line earlier about, financial discussions with you and your significant other is as much as a partnership as the marriage itself. So really, interesting perspective to take away from today's conversation. So I appreciate you, Frank, and I'll see you back on the next one.
Good. I look forward to the next one.
Fantastic. Well, hey, folks, look, we want to take one final moment, as we always do, and thank you for stopping by and being with us on the show today. If you did take something away from today's discussion and you benefited from it in any way, shape, or form, do us a favor and go ahead and hit that subscribe button then on whichever platform you checked us out on today. That way, you'll never miss out on another conversation between Frank and myself, and maybe one of our guests that we're going to be having on the show here coming up, where we dive into these different wealth management topics and explore some of the topics that make the most sense and are really pertinent to you and yours back at home. Before Frank, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Wisdom and Wealth.